Okay, it is painfully obvious to me that some of you guys do not play sports, never have played team sports, or are just so like race hungry that you cannot see past your own ignorance. So, if you've played any amount of team sports and you've played basketball particularly, there is an animus for rookies. Period. This happens in middle school, it happens in high school, it happens in college, and it happens in the WNBA. It also happens in the NBA and in the NFL. So there is just this humbling that happens with rookies that is completely a normal part of sports culture that we are trying to pretend like it's not, with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all these new WNBA players that are coming out. The truth is that this has always been happening, but y'all haven't been watching the WNBA, so now you're racializing it and making it about race. But it has nothing to do with race because Angel Reese is actually receiving the same kind of treatment. The media just is not covering it because it doesn't fit their narrative. Remember, this is an election year, so things have to be about race this year. They cannot be about athletics. They cannot purely athletics. They cannot be about just the nature of women's sports, because if they were having an honest conversation, they would be talking about why it's not acceptable for women to behave this way, but men are allowed to behave this way. Again, it's the same thing when LSU was in the championship and they were like, oh, she's so loud and braggadocious, as if every single NBA player is not like that, right? But that's the real conversation that we should be having. We should be having the conversation about why is it that women are expected to be these dainty, like respectable creatures in sports when that the same thing is not expected of men. It is very competitive. It is, there's money on the line. These people have deals outside of the WNBA. And so, yes, they want to win. Now, do I think the flagrant foul on Caitlin Clark was necessary? No. In the same way that I don't think that Draymond Green should be punching players on the court, but it's not racial. It's sports. No one went around and was like, oh, Draymond Green hates. I can't remember who he punched, but no one was like, oh, it's racial. They just were like, oh yeah, Draymond Green is missing a few screws, which could also be the case here. But it's the media, it's women, and if you guys have not learned yet how insidious the media is when it comes to these things, I suggest that you open your eyes. They could have very well taken this story and left it alone, but they took this as an opportunity to pit women against each other and to pit races against each other, which is just, again, in an election year, that's what the media does. You have to, this is not about Caitlin Clark and this is not about Angel Reese. They like each other. I shouldn't say they like each other. They do not have a problem with each other. When Larry Bird came into the NBA, when Kobe Bryant came in, and when LeBron James came in, they were absolutely bullied on the court. I don't know if you guys remember that. Kobe Bryant was my favorite basketball player. He was absolutely bullied. Shamefully. So this is not new. This is not racial. This is just sports. And we have to, if you're not an athlete, this is something that you're not going to understand. It has nothing to do, this happens in every single sport too. It's not just the team sports. It happens in individual sports because people are fighting for their spot. They're fighting for their recognition. They're fighting for the right to be valued and respected. And that's just what happens. Now, I will say it is a little unfair that Caitlin Clark got chartered a private jet because the other WNBA players do not get treated well. The reason why this isn't an issue in the NBA is because everybody in the NBA is making private jet money for the most part. Now, of course, there's people who are on the lower end, but for the most part, everybody is making millions. In the WNBA, it's not that way. You guys have to remember there's a big disparity between pay and players, and with NIL now it's even more. So WNBA players do not have the same income that NFL players or NBA players have. And I don't know if you guys saw this interview recently with Sid Colston. She was talking about how she was coaching basketball in her off season. She was making money coaching basketball in her off season. Do you know that NBA players could never do that? Because they're in training camp. They have, well, first of all, they have money, so they could be doing whatever they want over the summer. Most WNBA players are doing other things, they have other jobs because it just wasn't enough pay. So there is a disparity between how Caitlin Clark is being coddled, so to speak, versus other athletes. And I don't think that's racial either. I just think that the WNBA is trying to make Caitlin Clark the face of the WNBA in the same way that they tried to make Steph Curry and the face of the NBA. So it's politics. It is, it's business. So yeah, and they know that they're stirring the pot, and we are idiots for falling into the trap of being like, oh my gosh, it's racial. Oh my gosh, you guys, the black girls hate Caitlin Clark. The black girls they're not really worried about Caitlin Clark in that way, because they're also getting bullied. You guys should watch an entire week of WNBA basketball and watch how all the rookies are being thrown about and they're talking trash to all the rookies as you would in any other sport. It is not new news. So yeah, your sports ignorance is showing if you're reducing this to race because you don't have any point of reference outside of that. Like, ooh, I feel sad for our society.